Hello, welcome to Beyond Words Presents. I'm your host, Whitney Diffenderfer, and today I am here with the incredible energy behind our newest book, Think, Eat, Move, Thrive, Doctors James and Debra Rouse. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, thank you. It's an honor to be here, Whitney. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Whitney. Wonderful to see you.
We are so excited to have you guys on, and one of the things that I just want to make sure everybody knows right off the bat is that if you want to send in questions, please use the Q&A app on Google Hangouts. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like us on Facebook. Also, today we're actually going to be having a different kind of show. We talked about this a little bit earlier, and I'll let James and Debra kind of elaborate on this a little bit, but we're going to be kind of going through a day in the life of Think, Eat, Move, Thrive. But first things first, what is Think, Eat, Move, Thrive?
Debra, you want to jump in on that?
It's our new book.
Yay!
Our subtitle is The Practice for an Awesome Life. And that's really what the book is about. It's about the daily practice and what you do each and every day to have a life that is thriving and alive.
I think just to add to that, Whitney, the thing that we've learned in our own personal lives as parents, as a married couple for over 20 years, and clinical practice of clearly 40 years, is that I think a lot of people, when it comes to self-care and it comes to self-love, it's so easy to get in that very small box of perfectionism, where I've got to do it just this way, and if I don't do it just this way, I fail, I'm not good, and we start beating ourselves up. Yeah. The thing that we want you to know is that this is not about a preachy experience of well-being. This is a partnership, and just like it is for you and us, every single day we have to get up and decide to practice loving ourselves, practice taking care of ourselves. And the beautiful thing about this, a practice allows us to grow. It makes it fun, it makes it exciting, and you know what's beautiful about life? You get an opportunity every single day to take what you're practicing and put it into an experience of living your best life, and that's how life is defined awesome. It has nothing to do with being perfect. It has to do with showing up and giving your best.
I have to say, the thing that just struck me in what you just said is you use the term self-love. And to me, I don't know about other people out there, but that is not a term that comes up when you're talking about eating healthy, exercising, all that stuff. I mean, it's kind of, I guess they're in the background, but just as I think about it, that's exactly what you're doing. It's like you're loving yourself. You're giving yourself what you need in order to thrive, as you guys put it.
Right. And Whitney, that came up a lot for us when we were actually writing the book. And especially for me, what came up was this idea of worthiness. Am I worthy of self-love? Do I deserve it? Am I enough? And absolutely, what came to both of us was that we are all deserving of loving ourselves enough to make self-care the number one priority in our life. And it is self-care and self-love that we ignite a social revolution.
That's fantastic. So I think the thing we've learned, Whitney, is that when you look at typical health books, they're diet associated. We tend to look at diet as a experience of calories or fat or protein. And that's hard to get excited about that, at least for the long run. I mean, it may be something you're interested in maybe for a short-term experience of weight loss or metabolism support. But we really want to take this to the idea that Think, Eat, Move, Thrive was really all about this idea of a practice of self-love and self-care, because, you know, when you think in terms of what is it your primary diet should really be about, it's about self-love. If you're in a good place with your self-love and your self-care, you ever notice that you typically choose good foods? You typically are drawn to doing the right things that really support your well-being. And people, I think, go into any sort of health program, whether it be exercise or diet, under the influence of, I'm not worthy, as Debra said, or I'm not really loving myself right now. I need to change this and change that. Therefore, I'll love myself. This is about starting with self-love and enjoying the practice from there.
Well, one of the things that I have experienced throughout my life is that my family, we use food as a reward. So just as you're talking about self-love and about that, about eating the right thing, I don't even know how to talk about it, but about eating something that really nourishes your body, that being a form of self-love. For me, the first thing that comes up, it's like when I am loving myself, and I'm sure there's a lot more behind that, but when I'm loving myself, I go get myself some ice cream or something that is really, really not good for me, because it's you always see diet as rules and like restrictions to live within. So, you know, if I'm going to be nice to myself, then I'm going to let myself live outside those restrictions, which is, even as I say, it seems kind of crazy.
You know, I totally hear you, Whitney. I think as women we can relate on that level. And there's a few things about that. One is there's nothing really wrong with celebrating with ice cream every now and then. But the true question would be, how do you feel after you've had the ice cream? Because I've had this experiment personally before, and I feel horrible most of the time. I fall asleep on the couch with my mouth wide open, and I go into like a total ice cream coma.
Yes.
And the last time that happened, it really struck me like, this is so not worth it. This isn't a reward. I feel sluggish and horrible. And I think once you know it clicks and you say, wait, I'm going to reward myself with a walk. I'm going to step away from the desk, or I'm going to reward myself by baking my grandmother's recipe of pumpkin bread, or something that you do feel nourished when you eat it, versus like, oh, I thought this was going to be a reward, but now instead of being excited about celebrating whatever you're going to celebrate, you feel less than, right? You're like, well, how is that really celebrating loving myself, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's so many layers to it too, because it's like, okay, I just ate this ice cream, now I don't love myself anymore because I feel gross, and I know that and it just goes on and on and on and on. And I know that there's tons and tons of people out there in the world that can relate to just not just the ice cream binging, but I don't know, some people love cake, some people love pizza, some people love chips, fries, whatever it is. It almost seems like most people have that one food that's just the food that they go to, that is their comfort food. And I guess I love the fact that the first step in you guys's program is, in your practice, is think. Because I know that there is so much there for me, for everyone. And I'll tell everyone, this is my commitment. I am starting back on my personal path to living a healthy life, and I'm really looking for all of the tools that I can use to sustain it, because I did go through a period of time where I counted calories and I did all that stuff. No, it was not fun. The results were awesome, but the actual practice of it was not fun. And so I'm really excited to have you guys here today, and to hear, like, to have you share with everybody this exciting, fun practice that involves being healthy. Like, that just doesn't compute.
You know, Whitney, thank you for bringing in what we believe is probably the most important element of Think, Eat, Move, Thrive. It's fun. It really is supposed to be fun. I mean, my goodness, if self-care isn't fun, if it's punitive, if it's daunting, if it's heavy, why bother? And we are really all about the idea. One thing we've learned, certainly in our marriage and certainly in raising a family around a lot of these practices, is that the things that stick, the things that transcend, the things that work and are sustainable, they have to be enjoyable. And we are big believers that self-care and self-love and feeling wonderful, this idea of a practice of awesome, is a really good time. It's a really good time. It should be. So, back to the kind of the idea of diet. One of the things we talk about in the idea of think is an ROI. And we think a lot in business as a return on investment. And you can kind of think of thinking the same way. I love to look at this sort of day in the beginning, and we kind of walk through this day with you to this afternoon. There's a lot about how it is that we wake up in the morning. And the return, I say, the ROI first thing in the morning, the return on our intention. ROI, return on intention. Once you wake up in the morning, what is your intention for the day? How do you want yourself to show up? What do you want to be standing for? What is it you want your life to be about? Because that intention will set the tone physiologically, spiritually, emotionally. And that idea of thinking first thing in the morning in sort of that abundant way that the sky's the limit, because it really is, physiologically speaking, the way that we go into each day, setting the intention, will allow us to have a roadmap. It allows us to have a blueprint. And then from there, you get a chance to fill in the blanks based on what is it you want to be experiencing all day long.
Yeah. The idea that when you wake up, the first thing you do is you start to think. And that's why we decided to start the book with think, because everything originates in thought, and that is how we create the rest of our day, and we create our practice where it begins in thought.
That's awesome. Just as you said, what is the intention that you create for the day? I started thinking about, okay, I woke up this morning and what was the first thing I thought? And I honestly, and it sounds terrible, I think the first thing I thought was, okay, let's just get through to when I can go back to bed.
That's
Whitney, that is something, unfortunately, and I have great empathy and a lot of compassion for that, because I think you are part of a very large community of people who, I believe so many of us are too tired to keep running and we're too scared to stop.
Yeah.
When that's how we wake up and that's what's the influence that we're living under, it's hard to make a practice of thinking well. And that's why we didn't just want to have a book on diet or exercise or just thinking. We believe the integration of all three is the instrument for change. It is the catalyst for sustainable well-being. You can't have one without the other two. The three are very synergistic. They literally feed each other.
Right. So, for example, if you're just, your alarm goes off, you hit the snooze, whatever, you lay there and take a moment before you get out of bed and just say, I'm going to focus on my breathing. And while I focus on my breathing, I'm going to think of something that I'm excited about for my day. I'm going to think about something that I'm grateful for. And I'm going to think about when is going to be the best time for me to get my exercise in for the day, right? First thing in the morning, you just start thinking about, okay, you start getting your mind excited, like I'm going to plug into exercise. And I know that I'm tired now, and I'll probably start off slow, but once I get going, it's just going to kick in, and you already know you're going to feel so much better afterwards. You just start thinking in that positive mode, not the, oh gosh, what's coming. It's good morning, I'm excited to tackle this day.
So that would be the intention, and I guess for me, when I picture intentions or when I think about intentions, I automatically think of like ways of being. Like I'm going to be excited and engaged, or I'm going to be open and fun or joyous or whatever that is. Is it more along what you guys envision? Is it along those lines, or is it even just the intention around what you're going to do that day, or the emotion you're going to have around what you're going to do that day?
That is a brilliant question, Whitney. I love that question for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think a lot of us do kind of go, is it this lofty, I'm going to be excited, I'm going to be compassionate, I'm going to be full of passion and the things that are about this day? Yes, but you know what? In order for those things to happen, you got to build the foundation. And the intention of moving and setting the intention around positive thinking and eating well, all those things are going to allow for the intention of fulfillment and energy and passion to happen. These are the building blocks. So we can have a high intention, enlightenment for the day, but unless we take care of the vessel, unless we start to support our mind, unless we start doing the building blocks, the intention of awesomeness is unlikely to be reached. It's just kind of how it goes.
Go ahead.
Well, that just it gives me steps, which is really exciting, because if you couldn't hear it in my voice, as soon as I start talking about intentions that are like those lofty intentions, I know that they're great, and I know that they give you all sorts of excitement, fun, whatever in your life, and I just don't achieve them throughout the day. Like I forget them because they're not in what I'm doing, if that makes sense. So having that intention that's more specific, that's more maybe even you could call it grounded in what the functions of the day are, that's helpful for me.
All that I was going to add, and maybe James can talk a little bit more about it, is we're big fans of creating positive rituals, and I think that really helps with the intentions. But I wanted to add that it really begins the night before you wake up. So before you go to bed and you write down the 5 things that you're grateful for, this is going to help you sleep and it's going to help you wake up more refreshed. But set your intention the night before so that when you sleep on it, it really sinks into the subconscious, and I think that also helps kickstart the morning.
Absolutely, and what's great about that, to Deborah's point, research shows, and what you're going to find in Think, Eat, Move, Thrive, for a lot of health and wellness books out there, they tend to be very philosophical. And there's certainly a philosophy in this book, but for every philosophy, there's a scientific basis for everything we talk about. And I think that's a very important distinction. Deborah and I, as much as we are all about the spirit, and we're all about the emotion, and we're all about going for it in life.
Touchy-feely.
We're very touchy-feely. That's kind of but we're also scientists. We're clinicians, and we really do believe a lot of our faith in what we do and what we intend and practice is based in science. And we want people to know that when they read this book, they're going to go, oh my goodness, that's a cool practice. Oh, and by the way, here's the cool research to back it up, which can sometimes help facilitate our faith. But what Deborah said a moment ago, which is so cool, Whitney, I'm a big believer that human beings are very contagious. If we can have a small win, emotionally and spiritually, we tend to kind of get excited about that, and we look for the next win. And science tells us that there's something called the linchpin habit. Deborah talked about positive rituals. We're such a big fan of this idea. Put something first thing in your morning that you can win. It's either first thing in the morning, set the intention for gratitude, set the intention to do a brief yoga stretch. While you're brushing your teeth, just put love out into the mirror as you're looking at yourself in the mirror. Whatever the practice may be, that one habit has been shown to be scientifically driven to create the next series of good habits. So rather than saying, oh my gosh, I've got to do 27 great things today, do one thing well. Crush one thing, own that one thing, and allow and trust that one thing will give rise to the second, third, and 27th good thing, because that's how we're chemically wired as human beings. We grow on our good.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. It just makes me think, like, when I get ready for bed every night, I don't, begrudge brushing my teeth, washing my face, generally taking care of that side of things, because I do. I'm really good at brushing my teeth.
Yay!
And you've got great teeth, by the way.
Thank you very much. Well, and while I'm just going to pause here for a second and mention to everybody, and I'm going to hold it up because it's so pretty, the brand new book that we do have out called Think, Eat, Move, Thrive that James and Debra and I have been talking about. And today for the bundle, we're so excited. We actually have this at a 20% discount. Which also includes, you guys have written 2 extra excerpts, which is super exciting. One of them is called Crazy for Kale, because as I'm sure we will discover as we continue talking, you guys love kale. I also love kale.
I think I've got some in my teeth right now.
Awesome. Well, you have that, and then you also have 1 week of healthy, wholesome, and gluten-free living. So it's a meal plan for a week. So not only do you get the book, but you get those 2 PDFs that you can have right away, and we'll send the book to you as soon as possible so you can get started in that aspect as well. So you get all that for the bargain price of $16.80, and you just go to www.beyondword.com/Rouse, ROUSE, to grab that. And so then I just want to jump right back in. This is so much fun. I'm loving exploring this with you guys. But so what is the, and my producer just corrected me, it's actually a 30% discount, because that's even better. So here I am. I've woken up. I have just developed whatever practice I'm going to develop, and I will develop it, I'll say, tomorrow, to give myself a timeline. And then what's next? How do I continue to create wins for myself?
Well, I'm a big fan, and so is Deborah, of something we call it our hour of power. And I know when people think of, oh my goodness, an hour of power, I haven't got 3 minutes of power. Well, trust me on this one. This is an interesting thing. And there's 5 things that we really believe that you can do in that first hour of your waking day that will literally change everything. Change your chemistry, change your outlook, change your optimism, and absolutely set you on a course for a practice that will literally change your life day by day by day in the most positive way. So those 5 things. Number 1, we wake up, we say intention setting. I love to say it's your first M. There's 5 M's here, Whitney, which are really, really simple. Number 1, mission. First thing in the morning, as you set your intention, it's like a mission statement. What's my mission for the day? Is it self-care? Is it self-love? Is it about expanding my good? Whatever the case may be, just get a real good picture in your mind, because what we know is that when we have a mission, connected with what's in our mind's eye, the brain literally starts to go to work as a workshop to create the experience. It literally starts thinking about and searching for opportunities to manifest the mission of the day. So take a moment once you wake up Sunday morning and look at your life and say, here's my mission of the day. And give yourself permission to dream big and get excited about that, because the more excitement we bring into the mission, the more our brain gets emotionally engaged and chemically starts to lay down the pathway for this. Number 2, move. You have to move. I have a bit of a motto, I'm a little bit of a zealot, Whitney, but I say exercise only on the days that you eat. So, if you were planning on eating today, you need to move. So, our second M is movement, and it doesn't mean you have to go out there and knock out, a marathon or a 10K. Simple movement. It could be yoga. It could be going for a walk. It could be lifting weights. It could be a combination of those things. But try to give yourself at least 20 minutes after you set the first M of mission to bring the second M of movement. What this accomplishes is 2 things. Number 1, it absolutely sets a chemically powerful cascade of chemistry. It'll get dopamine moving in the right direction, which is a chemical for contentment and confidence. It's also a chemical for motivation. So when you get dopamine starting to rule your being, you actually start rising into the superhero first thing in the morning. It starts to change your brain chemistry, so you literally start to become this motivated, confident person. The third M is meal. Meal. And what's so beautiful about this, actually the third M, is meditation. So we're going to go from mission to movement to meditation.
Okay.
And why I like doing this, because after you move, you have all these great chemistries going on. You have dopamine, you've got serotonin, you've got norepinephrine. These are your inner pharmacy for excitement and passion and confidence. And when those things are really starting to work for you based on the movement, when you go into a mindfulness practice, whatever meditation you like to do, sitting quietly, picturing the day, giving yourself an opportunity to have your apple juice settle, as I love to say, to get clear, you're going to find that your brain starts to really work at a level of almost like a ninja warrior. You become incredibly focused. You become incredibly enlightened in your thinking. You become a great big thinker. And another thing that happens there, you release something called brain-derived neurotropic factor. Don't have to remember that's a ridiculously tough Scrabble experience, but what it basically means, you start to grow a bigger brain. So between the exercise and the movement and the meditation, your brain is literally getting bigger. Your thoughts are getting expansive. The physiology is getting stronger. So mission, movement, meditation. The fourth M is meal. Go right from your meditation into a meal experience. And we give you tons of great breakfast ideas in the book that Debra outlines wonderfully well in Think, Eat, Move, Thrive. And that helps to take that chemistry and really cement it in. It'll help you to build the metabolism, the confidence, the motivation to carry in through the rest of the day. But those first 4 M's literally will change everything. And this is a foundation that can be accomplished in as little as a half an hour, ideally an hour, but you're going to give yourself permission to step back and say, oh my gosh, I don't have that time, to say, how could I take 10 minutes and begin simply? How can I take a few moments and just take one of those M's and own it? Because the 5th M is manifest. Manifest. And that is absolutely meaning that you made good on your good intention. And when you make good on your intention, it builds your character, it builds your confidence, and it builds, if I think, like say, your personal integrity, your code with yourself. And I think ultimately, what's health and well-being really all about? It's about having integrity and alignment with our heart and our soul. And if we are making good in our good intentions, peace and prosperity are the outflow.
High five. Good one.
That was fantastic. And I'm curious how long, because I've never meditated before in my life, how long would you recommend for a meditation?
I think start with 1 minute. If you've never meditated before, start with 1 and build from there. You can go online and even just Google a meditation actually within YouTube. And you can find anything from 1 to 10 to 20 minutes. So start where you're comfortable. You can 5 minutes would probably be pretty easy for you. So I would start at 5. But for people who are really nervous about this idea of meditation, just take a minute and just focus on your breathing and see how that feels. And if you're okay with it, keep going and just surrender into it. And once your mind, if you start really starting to think about all the things you have to do in the day, then you'll know it's time to stop.
Yeah, I think what's great about this, Whitney, a lot of us get tripped up over the word meditation. It's already kind of scary. It's like, oh my goodness, the lotus position gives me cramps. I don't even want to. However, don't put yourself in a small box. It has nothing to do with the lotus position or knowing Sanskrit. Just think of it, you know what I love to say, this is an adult timeout. This is the adult version of going in timeout. And when you give yourself a moment or a minute just to let your brain and your being settle, that's meditation. Meditation is a simple opportunity to step outside of the fray and allow yourself to settle back into who you are again. And I think that's how meditation should be looked at. It is grace. It is an opportunity to be grateful for just the moment as it stands. And it also gives you permission to get outside of the critical thinker and into the accepting coach. Fire the inner critic, embrace the inner coach, and let things settle into that experience.
I wish you could see from where we're sitting at the desk right now, right next to us is James's meditation chair. So he goes every morning from our gym, which is right outside of this room, into his chair, and it's like an anti-gravity chair. So he gets himself in this awesome position. He puts on headphones because he does this certain meditation every morning, and he is just in the zone for like 20 minutes. It's so awesome. So I like the idea of ritualizing it, finding the same spot that you want to go back to, that maybe create a nice spot for you. It doesn't have to be a whole room. It could just be your favorite chair or cushion or pillow. But we do recommend you get out of bed to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Meditation in bed usually means a snooze alarm 3 minutes later.
Yeah. Well, and I really appreciate actually, Debra, when you said that when you start thinking about what's going to be happening in your day and all that stuff, that's when you're no longer meditating anymore. Because I've always been kind of like, okay, so does meditating mean you just sit and you be quiet for 5 minutes? Because that's what it looks like to an outside observer. It just looks like you're sitting there being quiet for 5 minutes or however long. So I very much appreciate, the picture of this is what it's not, this is what it is, and the juxtaposition of the two so that I can actually get it. I just got meditation more wholly than I think I've ever gotten it before. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And just a little sidebar on that it is often about being quiet and being still. But some people still then would have a hard time calming all of the extraneous activity and thinking that's going on. So then it can be helpful to choose a word or a small, short sentence that you can connect with your breath. So that's what you're thinking about. And it helps to sort of anchor the breath, anchor the thinking so that your mind doesn't start going shopping list, pick up kids,
right?
Get my exercise in or whatever. Focus on love, focus on gratitude, or just find that phrase that really resonates with you in stillness.
Awesome. I'm actually excited to try going and meditating now. I kind of want to go crawl in the corner over here and try it.
Me too.
So I've done the 5 M's for the morning. I've set my mission. I'm going to try it, see here if I remember them. I have my mission, my movement, my meditation, my meal, and manifestation.
Right on, Whitney. You're awesome.
You guys you depicted them all so well, and I can see the flow through all of them that launches you into your day. So then I've done all this, I'm ready, I'm jazzed, and I get to work. I, like many people, I work at a 9 to 5, I sit at a desk, I sit in front of a computer screen all day long. I do have the advantage of working at Beyond Words, so there is some of the larger spiritual conversation incorporated into our daily lives, but still it's usually while sitting at a desk staring at a computer. So how do I continue that energy if I'm in that space?
Well, a few things. Even if you did your daily movement, Whitney, studies unfortunately show that if you have a desk job, it's so important to get up at least every hour and move around. And I've been to Beyond Words, so I know you have a beautiful sort of walking friendly area around. So either you could take a few laps around the building, through your warehouse, you can do some stretching in your little conference room or outside. And I know that you're in the Northwest, and so weather dependent, if you can get outside once every hour for even 5 minutes, that is so awesome. And if the sun is shining, even better, just to get a little stimulation on your pineal gland. So that every hour getting up from the desk is super important. And then on your lunch hour, when you do have that stretch of time, I would say take half of that dedicated to self-care. So again, taking a walk at lunch would be great. A little interval would be even better. And then using at least 20 minutes for your nourishment and your eating time, and then 10 minutes for your cool down, wash up, change, whatever you need to do. It's so important to stay true to yourself, even though you guys are up against so many deadlines, I know, and the work is never ending, right? You're never going to be totally done at the end of every day. So just know that and say, okay, it's okay to take this time for my self-care at lunch, whether it's 45 minutes or an hour, and then every hour get up from that desk and do some kind of stretching.
If for instance, sometimes I have meetings that are longer than an hour, and I end up sitting at my desk for an extended period of time. Are there exercises that I could be doing while I'm just sitting here, like right now, when I'm sitting here with you guys?
Whitney, here's the cool thing. Yes, you can. And I think the beautiful thing to remember that when we have an hour and a half meeting or 2 hour meeting, it wouldn't be appropriate to excuse yourself and go out and let the sun bake your pineal gland for 5 minutes. I mean, sometimes we can't do those things. Here's what you can do. Just how you sit is a game changer. Studies show, in fact, the Harvard School of Public Health, in conjunction with the Harvard Business Review, did research on just posture and how we sit. So if we tend to sit at a meeting more like slumped over like this and our shoulders rounded over, we actually create more cortisol, we create more inflammation, we lose a lot of our confidence, and we lose a lot of our conviction, if you will, to be smart and be brilliant in those meetings, be attentive. But just simply sitting up straight, shoulders back, chest open, they call this the power posture. And just during that meeting, sitting like this will change your chemistry. It'll lower your cortisol, so you're actually more metabolically active while you're sitting. At the same time, it helps your genes to express longevity and well-being and fight inflammation. So just sitting like a superhero changes the game.
I love that, sitting like a superhero. I can do that. I'll just imagine myself with a cape on my back. That'll help too.
Totally, you are Wonder Woman. I mean, here's the cool thing. We have to remember every moment of our life holds for it an opportunity for self-love and self-care. It's our willingness to give ourselves permission to go through the window. We have to take responsibility to be the person we came here to be. You know what? Here's the gig, and I think Debra and I really get this. To be awesome is uncomfortable. Okay? Get it. If you think being awesome is all about being comfortable, it's just going to become second nature, it doesn't work that way. It's not supposed to. Our cells, our soul, our spirit thrives by pushing the edges of our being. Sitting up straight is uncomfortable than versus slouching. Going home and taking a lap around your car or your driveway versus going directly in the kitchen and mainlining carbohydrates is uncomfortable. But you know what? That's the mission of life. Push your edges, become more alive. That's how it wants to be.
That's so cool.
It is cool. I'm with you, sister. I mean, here's what we have to remember. When you are alive, fully embracing your self-care, everyone around you is being raised in that wake. You are a wellness wave maker. So your coworkers, your spouse, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, when they see you neurologically connecting with your highest good, they can't help but be elevated in that experience themselves. You are a healer just by living your life well.
And I've seen that. I have so seen that, and I've experienced that on both sides. It's so true. And I think to some extent, maybe not everybody, but for me, sometimes that kind of influence can be intimidating if I don't know what I'm doing. And I just love the simple things that you say. Like, you just walk around your car before you go inside. You set your intention for your day. It's not like you're asking me to go and bench press 300 pounds in the next 2 months. It's manageable. It's something I can do tomorrow. Anybody could do tomorrow, today. And that's awesome. And so we've gotten through our work day, and I've inspired everybody around me at my office, and I've walked and I've done these great things, and I'm actually really excited to start doing this. This is awesome. And then I head home, and like you said, okay, so I get out of my car, I walk around the car once before I go inside, and then I come inside, and there is my husband. My husband is, he's Italian. He is a very big fan of the pasta, and he has a tendency he loves to cook, and he'll be extremely creative with the cooking, sometimes with a mind toward cooking healthy and nourishing things, sometimes not so much. So what do I do there?
Well, you just take ownership of your self-care, and so that he sees your living demonstration. So I don't know what kind of pasta he's making, but let's just say it's regular Durham semolina flour pasta.
Yes.
Hey, honey, I've heard that whole grain pasta has a little bit more fiber and actually doesn't taste so bad. What if we try that sometime? And then also, hey, honey, instead of using the entire package and it's just us, or 2 or 3 of us, why don't we just make half the package so that we are conscious of our portion sizes? Hey, honey, why don't we add some kale to this pasta?
Oh my God!
Well, you just find ways to up-level it. James and I used to be big carb people. We were vegans, and I think that as a result of being vegan, and this was 20 years ago, we really over-carbed and we over-portioned. And it's been so interesting, just as we've been more in the research, as we've gotten older, we both love to cook. You just realize that when you take your time eating, you don't need so much. You smell the food, you use fresh herbs, you feel so much more nourished when you eat right size and right portions. So for some people, it may be using a smaller plate. For others, it's filling up on the veggies that you put in the pasta rather than the pasta itself. So you have the right sizes and the right proteins, and then I don't have a problem with his Italian, pasta-loving preferences.
Yeah, that's to be celebrated. I think what Debra said is such an important distinction. But, here's a lot of the reason why we come home and we tend to be like ravenous, is that I think it's impossible to control your appetite in the moment of dinner when for the previous 6, 7, 8 hours you've been out of control. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important because, we have this part of our nervous system has two sides, the parasympathetic side and the sympathetic side. The sympathetic nervous system is stress. It's when we don't take care of ourselves all day long. It's when we have a rough email and we don't get up and move around. We kind of stew in the negativity and we don't move. Mm-hmm. It's when we decide, I'm too busy to take my mid-afternoon snack or to go out for my 5-minute interval walk. All of those things start to mount during the day. So when we get home, we are living under the influence of a very sympathetically dominant nervous system, which is all about cortisol and stress. And all we want to do is eat sugar and carbs and a lot of the things that we really don't want to eat or overeat. Yeah. If we just decide as part of our morning intention, you know what? I'm going to nail those hourly 5-minute breaks. I'm going to eat mid-morning and a handful of almonds to keep my dopamine strong. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I have a handful of berries to balance my blood sugar. I'm going to do these rituals throughout the day. So when I go home at 6 o'clock at night to see my loving husband, I'm not thinking all I want to do is eat. All I want to do now is take care of myself because it's just part of how I've been living my day. In your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your relaxation response, it's your balancer, Whitney, it's your equalizer. When you sit down for dinner with that being the driving force of your day, you will eat properly. You won't overdo it. And you'll find yourself being much more connected to your husband, to the ritual, to the gratitude of the experience of dinner. Because it's emotional, but it's driven by chemistry that you're building all day long. So the beautiful thing is, if you couldn't nail your day fabulously, you still can get home and take that lap around the car, or grab your husband and say, hey, before we sit down, let's take a 12-minute walk across the neighborhood and come back and then sit down. That'll help control your appetite. There's so many great intervention strategies that we can give ourselves. So it goes back to why Think, Eat, Move, Thrive as a book was written. It's not about the diet. It's not about the exercise or just thinking. It's the integration of those three principles and the science of how they literally feed each other, so every moment of your day becomes a practice in living well.
And the one strategy I would add, because that was so awesome, all of it, was just having that ritual that isn't diving into the bag of chips or whatever it is when you get home. And I think one really helpful thing is, depending on how well you do during the day with your hydration, is just say, every time I get home from the office after my long day, I'm just going to have at least 8 ounces of water. I'm going to chug that glass of water, because that will help calm that initial urge to want to just put something in your mouth. Because sometimes we're dehydrated, whether it's from driving or we just forget. So many people forget to drink water working at their desk. It's easy. It happens to me sometimes. Yeah. And boy, then it's like, oh my goodness, that's what I needed. It wasn't the bag of chips. So that would just be one little extra tidbit I would throw.
Perfect.
Well, and I'm curious, because I've heard so many different numbers. How much water are you supposed to drink in a day?
There are a lot of philosophies.
So many.
It does depend on how much you're working out. We have a general rule of thumb, and that is to drink half of your weight in ounces. So say you weighed 150 pounds, then general rule of thumb is no less than 75 ounces per day.
Okay.
But if you're going by the 8 glasses a day, that's 64. But if you're sweating your guts out, you're going to need more than that. And if you work in a drier climate,
or you're mainlining coffee all day, which is dehydrating, or diet pop. I mean, all those things actually drain or pull your resources of hydration. So
those don't count.
Those don't count. Yes, you can't. Those as, oh my gosh, I had a 6-pack of Diet Coke.
Okay, yeah, because I've heard so many different numbers, and I've always tried to hydrate myself, and I never know if I'm doing it right or if I'm doing enough or whatever. So I will I'll do the math and figure out what that'll be for me.
A nice side effect of being well hydrated. A recent study was done just in terms of our mental acuity and our ability to be a great big thinker and be strong and clear and focused is all about hydration. So if you're a person who says, gosh, you know what, I could use some sharpness in the afternoon, I could use a little bit more support in my memory, oh my goodness, hydration is a secret elixir, if you will, for cognitive support.
And James did that video after the book was written, so you will find that video online as well about the importance of hydration, but it's post Think, Eat, Move, Thrive.
Awesome. We'll be sure to put that someplace. I'll put it in my blog after I write my blog. I'll add that to it so everybody knows. And I just want to take a quick second to show everybody the book one more time if you're just joining us. This, again, Think, Eat, Move, Thrive, which you can get for a 30% discount along with 2 PDFs, Crazy for Kale, and also the 7-day meal plan. All of that for 30% off the book price, which will end up being $16.80, I believe. Yes, $16.80, and you can go to www.beyondword.com/Rouse, R-O-U-S-E, to grab that. So I've had dinner. My husband and I I've never heard of the going on the walk before dinner. I've heard going on the walk after dinner, so that is intriguing, and I think we'll have to give that a try too. So in the evening, that is when I get into trouble. Honestly, after dinner, That's when I'll sit down and I'll watch TV, and I'll get kind of, that snacky feeling, and that's usually when the ice cream comes out. My family, as long as I can remember, we've had some sort of dessert every night, and it was usually ice cream. So I guess in my mind that's what happens. So how do you end your day powerfully as well?
Well, I'll share my thoughts, and then we'll have James share his. So we can relate because we go through periods of, for us, it's like granola or something after a meal, or yogurt, and then we start.
Or gluten-free ice cream sandwiches.
Our kids love these gluten-free ice cream sandwiches. But we did start the ritual of getting the walk-in after dinner. It's just awesome. And the other thing is, Whitney, the watching TV part. So you're connecting the two things, right?
Yeah.
So what really breaks the cycle for us is when The Voice isn't on, for example. Like, that was the only show we watched last year. And we're not big news people or media people. James, thank goodness, broke the ESPN habit. And
good work.
So I think part of it is just the ritual of hitting the couch, watching your favorite show. It triggers the connection, like, oh, now it's time to grab my snack. Mm-hmm. So I think it's looking at everything. How do you want to be? How do you want to sleep? You're not going to sleep as well if you have that after dinner little extra something. You're probably not even hungry for it, right? But you're triggering your connection with watching your favorite show with having the treat. Again, you're thinking of it as a treat. But it's okay to break the cycle. Just because you grew up having that, the treat, the sweet ritual, it's okay to say, I'm going to change that. And I've got some really great reading to catch up on. So I'm going to do that after I do my walk. I'm going to do, whatever it is, reading with my kids. I'm going to do something new with my husband. We're going to take on a new challenge together. It's just creating new rituals. It goes back to that idea of rituals. Or maybe that's going to be a good time for you to meditate, because it's going to distract you from the old pattern, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing that's the operative word here, most people who are listening and watching today, I can imagine what they're thinking. Like, I'm too tired to do anything different at night. I just don't have the motivation. You don't know that for the previous 12, 14 hours, I've just been putting it out. I want to just curl up on the couch and have some comfort food and watch bad television.
Yes, exactly that.
I mean, I get it. Listen, I didn't grow up in a granola family. I didn't grow up with meditators.
I ate dinner in front of the TV, Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, every night.
I grew up with alcoholism and addiction and depression, and I get how much it is difficult and scary to make any kind of change in our life, especially when it comes to the comfort we desire at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But here's what I'm going to ask people. I'm going to challenge people to consider this. In the morning, there's a bookend. We have the high five, those 5 M's we talked about. In the evening, we want to have another bookend. During the day is life. We have a human being and a human being, and then we have the human doing. End the day as a human being. It'll change everything. If you can't give yourself permission to go on a media fast, at least take the news out of your life, just for a week, and see what happens. If you can't give yourself an opportunity to be a meditator at night, then simply get your journal out and take 5 minutes and write down 5 things you're grateful for before you go to sleep at night. I think the thing that's really interesting, if anyone here is a parent, or we can remember back when if you had a good parent when you were young, you had this ritual at night. You had the bath, you had the story, and then you were tucked in. And you slept really, really well. Why do we think as adults that same practice won't work? Why do we forget that having a warm bath and being nurtured and reading would help us as adults? I think it's such an interesting thing that we think instead of as adults, we can be hammering out Facebook, or we can be hammering out our bills, watching really terrible television that stretches us out, and then go, oh my God, it's 11 o'clock, I better get to sleep, and wonder why we don't sleep.
Yeah.
Give yourself permission to give yourself that other bookend and do what you did for as a kid, what you do for anyone you love. Put yourself in a timeout at night. Put yourself in a timeout. Take a bath. Read something wonderful. Think in terms of gratitude as you tuck yourself into bed, and just watch how well you sleep. And maybe even more important, watch how you wake up the following morning. Who are you waking up under the influence of gratitude? 7, 8 hours of peaceful, deep sleep that you fell under when you were feeling grateful, nurtured, and loved, versus, oh my gosh, I watched that terrible news story, I ate a half a pint of ice cream, and I was arguing with my spouse about a bill that neither one of us wanted to take responsibility for. Which scenario do you want to be living the following morning after that night? And I think,
question.
You know what, I know, and I think for everyone who's kind of thinking about the way they want to be changing their life, don't change everything. Change the one thing and trust that'll give rise to the next good thing. This is a practice of self-love. We don't perfect it. We only get better at it.
Well, and the thing that I hear you guys saying in just the practice around going to bed is that do it with intention. I know that myself, I am one of those, I look at the clock and I'm like, oh man, it's 10:30, I gotta get to bed, or in order to get my 7 hours of sleep or 8 hours of sleep. And so it's more of a kind of hurry and get into bed type thing. I don't do it with intention. I don't sit and say, okay, so we've just finished dinner and it's 7:30, so I have a little time to do meditation, read my book, whatever that is, and then still have plenty of time to ease myself into bed, to really have that be a peaceful experience, as opposed to get ready for bed as fast as I can. Because it's more likely that for me than it is for anything else, than it is anything else. So that kind of intentionality, I could see how it would automatically give me ease and peace and calmness, and be very easy for me to see what I'm grateful for. Sometimes when I rush into bed, I can't see anything that I'm grateful for. I just want to get to sleep.
I understand. I think there's probably a support group of 1 million people who could literally sign up under what you just said. And you know, we've normalized mediocrity in this country. We've normalized depression, we've normalized diabetes, we've normalized heart disease, and we've normalized being average.
Yeah.
We need to normalize being awesome for ourselves. And this is a practice. It's exercising the idea of what your highest expression looks like and getting with the idea of putting that into a practice of daily living. You want to normalize your highest intention, then put into action your highest expression. And everything happens from there.
Awesome. Well, we're almost at our hour, and I really want to give you guys the opportunity, if there's anything else that any other amazing nuggets of wisdom that you have for all of us, is there anything else that you want to share?
Gosh, what it always comes back to for me is to let people know that they're worth it and they deserve to love themselves enough to make self-care their #1 priority, and that it isn't a selfish act. It's actually the thing that's going to make a positive difference in the community, which can then spread across the country and into the world. This is what we need. We need people to take care of themselves to actually make a positive change everywhere around us. And also what I want to say is about the book itself. You know, James and I, we really are about the practice, about the day to day to day. We're not about an outcome or a certain gene size or 3 weeks to X, Y, or Z. But we do have a 30-day plan in the book, a 30-day meal plan for people who just need help getting started. This is our way of introducing how to think, how to eat, how to move every day, and then you take it from there. So it's a starting place, but we see it as there's no ending place, right? It's a place to practice and to keep on practicing, so that you will thrive in your life.
And I think maybe to add to that, Whitney, is that whole idea of the program being every day versus the 9-week or 6-week program. A lot of people will say, well, my biggest challenge is motivation. And what we know is that when there are two types of motivation, one is extrinsic, one is intrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is what Debra was just speaking about so elegantly, and that is the idea that when we understand that our self-care and self-love is a buoy for people around us, it's actually a form of social activism, it becomes bigger than us. That's the most powerful form of sustainable, inspired motivation. When it's about the jean size or it's about how do I look, that will never keep you motivated for the long run. And so I think the big take home for people, understand that self-love will keep you motivated the rest of your life. And oh my goodness, what a cool thing to be living under the influence under. If I could think of anything I want to be living from, is being motivated by self-love, knowing it's going to transmit and translate to everything I love around me. Now, I get excited about that the rest of my life.
And not self-love in that narcissistic way. Self-love in that I care about myself enough to move every day, to meditate, to eat well, so to serve, to volunteer, to give my best to this life so that I can be of service to others.
Yeah, we are alive to the degree that we serve. And when you serve yourself first, everyone around you will be served from that.
Yeah, I can hear in you guys, and I know that it's there for you, this activism, this growing it so it's bigger than ourselves, this actually making an impact on the country as a whole because of where we are headed as a country, in terms of overweight, diabetes, heart disease, all of those things that we are facing as a country, and what you guys are offering us is that wake-up call, almost that kind of pinch in the arm that's like, no, you don't have to go crazy, you don't have to just eat kale, although I'm sure you guys probably could. You have all sorts of recipes and things.
I've only eaten kale the last 20 years.
It's manageable, it's reachable. There's things that we can do that are small and will make a huge difference and that will help us love ourselves. And I want to thank you guys both so much for being on the show. It's been an amazing experience, and I cannot believe the hour is already over. I could talk to you guys forever. But thank you so much for being here.
It was an absolute honor. We wish you well and the whole community. Thanks for the opportunity to serve you today.
Thank you, thank you. And just so everyone knows, next week we are going to have Lori Ann Thompson. She is the author of after the Rouse's new book, our next newest book called Be a Changemaker. And she's going to be helping us, not on the health side of things, but she's going to be helping us get in touch with our purpose, what that is and how we can manifest it and what difference we want to make in the world because of our purpose. So be sure to come back, and we will see you again next week here, same time, same place. Thank you so much again, you guys, for being here, and we'll see everyone else next week.
Thank you.